Whitby Goth again quite a few times now. What's your favourite thing about the festival?
Okay, well, obviously Whitby itself is a really fascinating place. My very first time playing here, I had never seen a town like this before. Now, granted, I haven't traveled all over England, but Whitby, well, when people ask me to describe, I should back up and say, I was told it was in a seaside town, so I was expecting palm trees and sandy beaches and cocktails. And instead it was, you know, I realized that Whitby is the place that coined the phrase uphill both ways, because you can't go anywhere in Whitby without going uphill both ways. And luckily though, while you're going uphill both ways, you're being pelted in the face with horizontal freezing rain. So that's usually what it's like here, but it's so fascinating to see a place that has such a quaint and antiquated sort of old-timey, almost medieval village feel. So one of my favorite things about Whitby Goth Weekend is the town itself. You know, it's just such an interesting place to be. But then, of course, you know, who hates being in a room with a couple thousand Goths cheering you on? So it's a very, very drunken, debaucherous, wonderfully aesthetic experience.
You play a lot of different songs, and it's usually only you and a guitar on stage. What's your favorite song to play and why?
Okay, my favorite song to play is always what I've written most recently. So
fair answer.
Yeah, and you know, there's songs that when you're a musician and you're privileged enough to have people want to hear you play, they generally, there are hits in their mind. You know, there are songs that have, for whatever reason, become the popular ones. And in my case, you know, obviously When You're Evil is one of them. So I will be fat and bald and 80 and playing in Vegas, and I will be playing When You're Evil, and I'm certain of it. I can't escape it. I still enjoy playing it. I still enjoy playing it. And I still forget the lyrics as if I've never played it before. But whatever I'm working on presently, I'm most likely to be the most excited about. And so that's what's most excited. That's what's most exciting to share with the audience.
Your albums go through a big range of musical styles. So you've got a country album, and some of your earlier stuff's a bit more orchestral, and it's a bit more jazzy. And Raised by Bats is a bit heavier. Who are
like
your
a goth rock
biggest
album,
inspirations?
Oh man, well, David Bowie is everybody's biggest inspiration, really. If like myself, you're a crooner, you're somebody who actually sings, you know, you don't rap or scream or do that other Cookie Monster thing, you know. C is for cookie, that's good enough for me.
You do it well, actually.
Thank you. I won't be able to sing tonight, though. I think I just ruined my voice.
You can blame me, it's fine.
And I'm not putting down any of those forms of vocalizing, we'll call it vocalizing, but I don't do any of that stuff. You know, I'm a singer. And so if you're a singer and you grew up in the 80s like I did, David Bowie was the man. But then, of course, you know, there was Adam Ant and Peter Murphy and Robert Smith, and these people are all influences. But then, as you may have noticed, I'm a goth. I consider myself a goth, but I really don't make gothic music. You know, I make folk music and I make cabaret music, and as you pointed out, I've made country music. I have a reggae song, for Christ's sake. You know, like, to me, I'm stopped all of the time, you know, by strangers, mostly in airports, with my guitar slung over my shoulder, and they say, "Are you a musician?" And I say, "Yeah." And they say, "What kind of music do you make?" And they want me to tell them what genre the music is. And I think that's the most preposterous thing in the entire world. Genre are like tools. Imagine being a carpenter and the only tool in your toolbox is a hammer. And to me, that's what it's like if the only kind of music you make is heavy metal. That's the only tool you have. That's the only tool in your arsenal.
Obviously, you've got your gothic filmmaking, and you've had an album in the works for quite a while now. What's coming up?
Okay, well, yeah, Heart-Shaped Wound is an album that I think I signed a contract to make, I want to say 3 years ago at this point, and I still haven't made it. I've written the songs, and I think they're really, really great, solid songs, but they were all written during a very, very tumultuous relationship, and I kind of wanted to disassociate myself with them to some degree. So for the very first time in 10 years, I went to a record label because I've been releasing stuff myself, and they gave me a bunch of money, and then I took their money, and then I realized, oh, I don't actually want to record these songs, because when you go into the studio and you want to write a song about something very painful, you're dredging up all of those feelings. And I think I dragged my feet for a long, long time on recording the album. And then I had the best and worst idea I've ever had in my entire life, which was, let me make a half-hour TV show by myself, which is what Gothic Homemaking is. It really is a weekly half-hour show that has all the makings of a regular television show, except I make it by myself, and it's stupid and ludicrous for anyone to try to do this. But I've spent a year and a half working on that, hence, of course, I wasn't working on Heart-Shaped Wound. But the answer to your question is a really simple one. I took the long, circuitous, scenic path, but the answer is that the very last episode of Gothic Homemaking airs the first week of May, and as soon as it's finished, I focus entirely on Heart-Shaped Wound, and that album will be finished and on the streets September 1st.
Good? Maybe. Glad to hear it. Thank you very much.
My pleasure.
Enjoy playing the show and enjoy the rest of your festival.
Thank you so much. Very nice to see you again.
You too.
To Mr. McGee. He hasn't had a thought since 43. His brain is the portrait of atrophy. He ain't using it, why not give it to me? Brains, I won't